So we left off on Friday. Very quickly, I glossed over Hamlet seeing his stepfather / uncle praying. And I'm just going to talk about this briefly and get on to where we actually left off at scene 4. He sees Claudius praying. This is Act 3, Scene 3, lines roughly 20 or so through 70. Nope, 36 through 70. The king is delivering a soliloquy. He's praying, etc. Hamlet sees him when he falls down on his knees and really starts to pray. Hamlet sees him and says, "Now might I do it, Pat." That is quickly, easily. Now he is praying. He says, "Now I'll do it." As soon as you hear somebody say, "Now I'm going to do something," you know they're pretty much not. They're still thinking about it too much. And so it goes to heaven. And so am I revenged. That would be scanned. And when he says scanned is a literary term that literally means you look at a line or a poem and you try to determine its meter, how many feet there are, rhymed and unrhymed syllables, and what kind of meter it is. Is it a 6-line, a 6-foot poem, a 12-foot, etc., 10-foot? We'll talk about that when we get to poetry. How its rhyme scheme is, all that. Okay? And what he means is, wait, I've got to stop and analyze this. A villain kills my father, and for that, I, his sole son, do this same villain sin to heaven. He says, this is higher in salary, not revenge. That is, this is to do a job and get paid rather than revenge. Because what does revenge imply? And if you would hand it to her in the back. You want the person to suffer. Where does he want Claudius to go? Hell, okay? And he says, and here my father stands, metaphorically speaking, in purgatory, with all of his sins and crimes on his head. The ghost said he died without having confessed. He died without last rites. He died without absolution. All that stuff I was talking about the other day, right? So, Hamlet says, no, I want to get him in the purging of his soul. He says, no, I want to get him in a more horrid hint. Okay, you've got a gloss down there. Seizing, or more probably occasion of seizure. No, he means I want to catch him in the act. In the incestuous pleasure of his bed. At game, that is gaming, betting, cards, etc. Swearing or some other act that has no relish, like relish on a hot dog, no additional tidbit of salvation in it. That is, I don't want to catch him, I don't want to kill him, when he's doing anything that can be construed as beneficial to his soul. Then I'll trip him. Why? So that falling, his heels may kick back at heaven as he's going head first into hell. Okay? So that his soul may be as damned and black as hell whereto it goes. He goes, oh, but my mother's waiting for me. I need to go talk to her. Hamlet leaves, and that's when Claudius tells us, my words fly up, my thoughts remain below. Words without thoughts never to heaven go. That is, you can pray all the words, for example, of the King James Bible, and if you're not serious, doesn't do you any good. Hamlet goes into his mother's room. But first, this is scene 4. Gertrude and Polonius go in. Polonius tells her he's on his way. Look, you lay home to him. That is, thrust. And what does he mean by that? Push him. Push Hamlet to his limits. Get him to tell you what's wrong. Tell him his pranks have been too broad to bear with. Your grace has screened and stood between much heat and him. That is, tell him that you are running interference for him in your suffering for it. Any good son is going to want to take the pressure off his mother. Okay? And we hear, mother, mother, mother. Polonius hides. Hamlet comes in. Now, mother, what's the matter? Remember, we've heard that phrase multiple times. What's the matter? Between who? Between Hamlet, thou hast thy father much offended. Okay? Notice one of the things, you're not going to be tested on this, so don't worry about it, but it's interesting. In Shakespeare's day, there were two different kinds of pronouns. And I don't mean like first person, second person, third person. I mean the TH forms, sorry, my writing is just out the door, and the Y forms. So, thou, thee, thine, you, your. And also ye. Of those, which do we obviously use today? We use these. Even in Shakespeare's day, however, these were archaic. These were old-fashioned kind of stuff. But they were still used some. This, it's thought today, this is the more formal, you're addressing blah, blah, blah. These were used among socially superiors to each other, okay? These were used when you're looking down at somebody else, etc. So there's a what's called a register difference. You use them in different occasions, right? Look at what Shakespeare does in the scene, because we see them switch back and forth. Hamlet says, now mother, what's the matter? Hamlet, thou hast thy father much offended. Now, that can be heard talking to Hamlet. They're socially superior. It's also familiar. This is within families, okay? He says, mother, you have my father much offended. And when he says you, he distances himself from her. That's not a familiar form, family form, all right? Notice, you have my father much offended. Who does he mean? Hamlet Sr. Who does she mean? Her husband. Not the same thing, by the way. Come. You answer with an I, and she responds with the Y form. So initially, she's trying to be the warm, comforting mother. Hamlet pisses her off, and she responds with the you. Go, you question with a wicked tongue. Why, how now, Hamlet? What's the matter now? Have you forgot me? No. By the rood means by the cross. Not so. You are the queen, your husband's brother's wife. He doesn't say you are the queen, you are my mother. He has to get that husband's brother's wife. Why? She knows exactly what he's getting at. Mom, you're committing incest. And would it were not so, you are my mother. Would it were not so. I wish it were not so. That's what that literally means. I wish you weren't my mother. Raising kids, when a couple of our kids, maybe about 4, when a couple of our kids were younger, especially our eldest, when she was like 4 or 5 or 6, she'd go and spend some time with her friend who lived behind us, only child, spoiled out the wazoo. And our daughter would come back and say something, we'd punish her or whatever. I hate you, I never. It's the hardest thing a parent can deal with, even at that age, because it still hurts. Hamlet isn't that age. We still haven't talked about how old Hamlet is. We're going to see that in the beginning of Act 5. Nay then, I'll set those to you that can speak. I'm going to stop trying. I'm not even going to talk to you anymore, Hamlet. Hamlet, sit. Come, sit you down, you shall not budge, and you go not till I set you up a glass where you may see the inmost part of you. And I need to pause for a moment, or did I do it in this class? No, it wasn't this class. Back up for just a second to a scene that I said was important only because of that it's often taken me Shakespeare telling actors, don't screw up his plays, don't wildly gesticulate and all that kind of stuff. It's Act 3, Scene 2. Hamlet comes in with some of the players, okay? And he does do what I just talked about. He tells them how to recite the lines that he's given them, how to not overact them, and things like that. But then he goes on and tells us why there are plays. What is the purpose of playing, acting? And Hamlet says, Act 3, Scene 2, line 16 and following. He says that he wants them to overstep not the modesty of nature, for anything so overdone is from the purpose of playing, that is acting. What is the purpose of acting? Whose end, whose purpose, both at the first, ancient Greece, Sophocles, we read 2 of his plays, and now, was and is to hold as 'twere the mirror up to nature. The very word drama means to mimic. If you mimic something, you're acting like that thing. Drama is a mimicking of life, okay? So Shakespeare's saying, this is probably going to come up with the sunrise, but you can still see yourself in it up close. Shakespeare is saying acting, plays, are to be a mirror. What do you see when you look in a mirror? Stupid question, right? You see yourself. So what do plays do? They show us us. What's he mean by that? He gets that, by the way, from Aristotle. What should we see when we see the character Hamlet? We should see a bit of ourselves. What about when we see the character Oedipus? We should see a bit of ourselves. Antigone, same thing. Claudius, Gertrude, all of them are meant in one way or another, to some extent, to be us. Why? Because we can easily be any of them. He goes on. To hold the mirror up to nature, to show virtue her own feature, that is, to show what virtue looks like, to scorn her own image, and the very age and body of the time, his form and pressure. So that when we read Hamlet, we see what the time of Hamlet was like. Meaning, we see Elizabethan England. But it's not only that. Because the plays, in a sense, are also timeless. So that we read Hamlet, we see what 2024 is like. There are a lot of Claudiuses and Gertrudes and Hamlets and Rosencrantzes and Guildenstern running all around. More Poloniuses than anything. Because what does Polonius do? He sticks his nose where it doesn't belong. Now, he goes on. No, we'll skip the rest of that. So, back to where we were. I needed to point that out about what the purpose, for example, of this is. So, he tells her to sit down. He doesn't tell her, he makes her. She says, what wilt thou do? Thou wilt not murder me. Help, hope, ho. And we hear from behind the curtain, what? Ho, help, help, help. Hamlet, drawing means he pulls his sword out. He doesn't draw the curtain back. See, if he drew the curtain back, would he kill Polonius? No. He makes it pretty clear. He has no intention to kill Polonius. How now? A rat? Dead for a ducat, dead. And he stabs through the curtain. And Polonius cries, "Oh, I am slain," and he falls and dies. Queen, what have you done? Pretty obvious what he's done. Nay, I know not. Is it the king? Because when Polonius falls, he's still behind the curtain. Hamlet can't see the body yet. Oh, what a rash and bloody deed is this. Was it rash? Yeah, it's pretty rash. I mean, you hear somebody yell, "Oh, help, help." Does that mean you just kill them willy-nilly? No. Hamlet, a bloody deed? Almost as bad, good mother, as kill a king and marry with his brother. Notice what he is implying there. He doesn't explicitly state it. You killed your husband. Notice, almost as bloody as kill a king and marry his brother, not as kill a king and marry his wife. He's suggesting you were involved. As kill a king? What the hell are you talking about? Aye, lady, it was my word. Yep, that's what I said. And he pulls up the curtain and he sees Polonius. What did Hamlet tell Ophelia about her father in the little scene after his to be or not to be speech? Where's your father? At home. Tell him to stay in his own house, that he play the fool there and not outside. Thou wretched, rash, intruding fool. Why intruding? Wretched and rash are kind of easily to understand. This was a conversation between a son and his mother. Why is he there? Polonius doesn't belong there. Farewell. I took thee for thy better. Damn. I thought I got Claudius. Take thy fortune. And that's kind of a way of saying, let whatever's going to happen to you. Notice he doesn't say, go to hell. Thou find'st to be too busy is some danger. Too busy. You should have a gloss there, but you don't. What does he mean? Too nosy. Too involved in other people's busyness. Okay? Leave wringing of your hands. Peace, sit down. And that's because Gertrude is sitting there going, oh my God, what's he going to do now? Is he going to kill me too? He's like, Mom, calm down. Take a seat. And let me wring your heart. Okay? Hold on just 1 second. Depending on which version of the Bible it pulls up. He says, let me wring your heart. Okay, so she's wringing your hands. Let me wring your heart. For so I shall, if it be made of penetrable stuff, that is, something that can be penetrated, broken into, if damned custom hath not brazed it so that it be proof and bulwark against sense. What does he want to do? He wants to break her heart. For what purpose? David, 51st Psalm, which he writes after Nathan the prophet comes to him and says, I know what you've done. And what he's done is, previously to this, one day he's on his palace rooftop And he's looking out, over the city of David. And he sees this beautiful young woman bathing on her roof. Apparently that was all the fashion then, okay? And he watches her and stares at her, and he sends for her to be brought to him. They have sex. That's a neutral way of putting it. I think what actually happens is he rapes her. Okay? She's married. She gets pregnant. He loves her. Whether that's before or after the, sex is unclear. He desires her upon seeing her bathing. Her husband is his chief military commander. They're fighting, I can't remember which Ite, but it's one of the Ite tribes. And David sends her husband, Uriah, into the foremost, hottest part of the battle. Well, first, he calls him home from the battle, giving him some R&R for one specific reason. He wants Bathsheba's husband to sleep with her so that if she gets pregnant, we don't know whose it is. It's probably her husband's. But he is such an upright commander, military man. He's like, I can't have sex with my wife. There's all these other guys at the front. They're suffering. I need to be with my men, Good warrior. David's like, damn. So he sends him to the hottest part of the battle, and Uriah gets killed. David then takes Bathsheba as his wife. Doesn't cancel out the rape and, that kind of stuff. So, Nathan comes and tells him all this. And David writes this psalm. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love, according to your tender mercies, according to your compassion, blot out my transgressions. Wash away all my iniquity. Cleanse me from my sin. For I know, and he goes on about all the sins that he's done. And then he says, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a steadfast spirit in me. This is the New International Version. Cast me not away from your presence. Take not your Holy Spirit from me. Restore to me the joy of your salvation. Grant me a willing spirit. Then I will teach transgressors thy ways, etc., etc. He concludes it. Boy, I hate this translation. My sacrifice, O God, is a broken spirit, a broken and contrite heart, O God, you will not despise. Why must it be broken? Because Jeremiah says the heart is deep and deeply wicked, and it's stony. It has to be broken so that it can be repaired. Go back to Hamlet. Hamlet says, let me wring your heart, because if it's made of penetrable stuff, if I can get inside it, he says, I can help you. Queen, what have I done? What are you talking about, Hamlet? That thou darest wag thy tongue in noise so rude. All that in noise so rude against me? What does she really mean? Put yourself in this situation with your mother. Who the hell do you think you are to talk to me that way? That's what she's saying. Hamlet. So she says, what have I done? He skips the rest of it. Such an act that blurs the grace and blush of modesty, calls virtue hypocrite, takes off the rose from the fair forehead of an innocent love, and sets a blister there, like she has a boil on her face. Okay? Makes marriage vows as false as dicers' oaths. Oh, such a deed is from the body of contraction. Plucks the very soul in sweet religion, makes a rhapsody of words. Heaven's face does glow over this solidity and compound mass with heated visage. As against the doom is thought sick at, and she's like, what? What act that roars so loud and thunders in the index? What are you talking about? Thunders in the index, meaning that does all these things that you've just mentioned. And so what does Hamlet do? He says, here, Mom, look at the picture. He doesn't hand her a mirror. He hands her a portrait of her dead husband. And on this, the counterfeit, husband and brother-in-law. And on this, the counterfeit presentment of two brothers. So there's a portrait, because obviously it's not a photograph, didn't have them. It's a painting of Claudius and Hamlet Sr. See what a grace was seated on this brow, Hamlet Sr. Hyperion's curls. He's already mentioned Hyperion in his first soliloquy, talking about his father. The front, the face of Jove himself, an eye like Mars that is a warrior to threaten and command, a station like the herald of Mercury, new lighted on a heaven-kissing hill, a combination, blah, blah, blah. Okay? This was your husband. Now look at what follows. Here is your husband, like a mildewed ear, like an ear of corn, that you open up the shuck, you shuck it, you take the leaves off, and it's just all rotted inside. Blasting his wholesome brother. Has Hamlet specifically said what happened? Not yet. Have you eyes? Don't you see? Could you on this fair mountain, Hamlet Sr., leave to feed and batten on this moor? A moor is a desolate area that doesn't produce any crops. Have you eyes? You cannot call it love. That is, you can't leave this for this and say it's love. What you getting at? Nah, there's something else that draws you to your husband. For at your age, the heyday in the blood is tame. That's a polite way of saying, and you're too old for sex. That is, you're too old for your sexual desires to be the thing that's moving you. So, what judgment, and he means there, what rationality would make you leave this for this? He goes on and says, 77. What devil was it that thus hath cozened you at Hoodman Blind? What's trick you? Hoodman Blind is like blind man's bluff. Okay? Eyes without feeling, feeling without sight, ears without hands or eyes, smelling without all, or but a sickly part of one true sense could not sum up. Oh, shame. Where is thy bless? And he's kind of going, come on. I want to see your face turn red. I want to see you feel shame. Rebellious hell, if thou canst mutiny in a matron's bones to flaming youth, let virtue be as wax, and melt in her own fire. Proclaim no shame when the compulsive ardor gives the charge. And she's like, stop, Hamlet, stop. In other words, the point got through. Thou turnest mine eyes into my very soul. That was the whole point of that Psalm 51. What David is doing there is he's turning, go away, Siri, he's turning inwards and seeing utter rot. And that's why he says, have mercy on me, O God, have mercy on me. Okay? Create in me a clean heart, renew a right spirit within me. Cast me not away from your presence, he says. Thou turnest mine eyes into my very soul, and there I see such black and grained spots as will not leave their tint. Where else have we talked about spotting, tinting, or tainting? Hamlet's first soliloquy. Oh, that this too sullied flesh would thaw, melt, and resolve itself into a dew. Or that and he goes on about suicide. Then, when Hamlet meets the ghost, what does the ghost tell Hamlet not to do? just before he talks about it, his wife / Hamlet's mother. Taint not thy mind. Okay? Taint. Don't add a little coloring to your mind. He's saying, Hamlet, kill your uncle, but stay innocent. How do you do that? You don't. Okay? So, she now sees inwardly what? The rotten corruption. That has to happen before or as part of the act of contrition. Okay? If Hamlet Sr., before he died, had been lying on his bed, whatever, couch, chaise lounge, out in the garden, and been internally doing what she's talking about, it could be debated, depending upon your theological stance, that he died cleansed. If he had recited mentally David's 51st Psalm and meant it, he would have died confessed. Not confessed to a priest. He wouldn't have died with absolution. But he'd have been pretty clean, let me put it that way. Okay? So, Hamlet says, in response to her, I'm looking inwardly, I see all the rotten stuff inside. Nay. What does nay mean? No. He doesn't mean stop, Mom, that's not what I'm getting at. He means that's not enough. It's not enough to just acknowledge, let's say it this way, one sin, because that's what she's talking about. Remember, most religious play of all of Shakespeare's plays, okay? Nay, but to live in the rank, smelly, stinky sweat, physical bodily sweat of an enseamed bed, and you've got a gloss down there, it's 90, loaded with greased. Maybe literally, that's what that means. But what does that word enseamed sound like? Put one consonant in it. Enseamed bed. A bed full of bodily fluids. I think that's what Shakespeare wants his audience to supply with that word enseamed. Stewed in corruption, the stews in Shakespeare's day, stew had two meanings. Pot full of meat and vegetables, that kind of stew. And it was also, the stews were the whorehouses. It's where you go to find a prostitute. Okay? So, stewed in corruption. Notice, you can talk about that corruption bubbling like a pot of stew, or being in the stews, in the hookers' rooms, in corruption, honeying and making love over the nasty sty. We use that word sty for only two things. You can get a sty in your eye, okay, which is a growth, or only one other way, a pigsty. What are pigs known for? Louder? Dirty. Filthy dirty. They like to just wallow in their muck. And the muck is it's not just mud. It's everything they drop on the ground. Okay? So what picture has he just painted? Here's Claudius and Gertrude's marriage bed, covered with bodily fluids, and it's like a pigsty. In the image of them going at it with rank sweat, okay, he gets the full picture. Oh, speak to me no more. Hamlet, stop, you shouldn't be talking about these. These words like daggers enter in mine ears. No more, sweet Hamlet. But it's almost like Hamlet doesn't even hear her. Why? One, he's on a roll. And two, what is Hamlet doing that he hasn't been able to do up till now? He's unburdening. He says, but break my soul. Why? For I have to hold my tongue. Down, down, heart. His distracted globe, his mind. Well, now his mind isn't distracted. It's focused on a purpose. And it's to tell his mother what she needs to hear. And in doing so, he's taking all this garbage out of himself. A murderer and a villain. A slave that is not 20th part the tithe. So he's not 1/20th of 1/10 of your previous lord. That is Hamlet Sr. It's like, what, 0.0005, something like that. A vice of kings, a cut purse of the empire. Cut purse is pickpocket. In the rule that from a shelf the precious diadem stole and put it in his pocket. No more, she cries. What's happening to Gertrude? Why does she say no more? Okay, his words were like daggers in her ears. You keep going, and what's going to happen? She's going to lose it. I don't mean just, boo-hoo. She's going to go crazy. The ghost comes in. Why? Does she see the ghost at all in this scene? Nope. Hamlet does. Why doesn't she? Some have said the ghost isn't real. How do we know the ghost is real? Because Bernardo, Francisco, Marcellus, and Horatio have also seen it. It's not just Hamlet who sees it. If it were only Hamlet, then we could go, okay, Hamlet, needs to go off to Bedlam, the place I mentioned the other day. Ghost comes in. A king of shreds and patches, save me and hover over me with your wings, you heavenly guards. Why? Because after the word patches, notice the dash. He pauses. He's interrupted. He doesn't continue his thought. Save me and hover over me with your wings, you heavenly guards. He's talking about angels. Why? Because the ghost has appeared. What would your gracious figure? That is, what do you want? Would often means in Shakespeare want or wish for or desire. Going back to its original Old English meaning. Okay? It doesn't mean just the past tense of will do or will, act kind of a thing. Why does the queen say he's mad? Because prior to this, he's been looking at her. And now he looks off, over there. What would your gracious figure? She's like, okay. Do you not come your tardy son to chide? That lapsed in time and passion lets go by the important acting of your dread command? Is that why you're here, Dad? Because I haven't killed Claudius yet? The ghost. Don't forget. Don't forget what? Leave your mother alone. He says, step between, do not forget, this visitation is but to whet thy almost blunted purpose. To whet means sharpen. His blunted purpose, the sword Hamlet should be preparing for Claudius. I'm here to sharpen your purpose, Hamlet. But look, amazement on thy mother sits. Amazement. We've heard the word ecstasy used several times in the play. Ecstasy, this leaving of the body. That's also what amazement means. To be amazed is to use another English word, to be astonished. Anybody remember, we talked about before, what astonished literally means? To be turned into stone. Not literally, but turned into stone like in a what's called a catatonic state, where you're just kind of frozen and nobody can interact with you. It's like you're dead to the world. You're alive, you're breathing, your eyes might even be open and focused on something. But it's like, hello, anybody there? And there's nothing. Amazement on my mother said, step between her and her fighting soul. Her in her fighting soul. How can they be separate? You ever heard of being of two minds? Being of two minds is, do I do this or do I do this? Wanting both and yet not being able to have both. It's to be interiorly divided. There's a psychological term that is used way too much to describe what that is because it's not accurate. Schizophrenia. Like multiple personality disorder. Step between her and her fighting soul, Hamlet. Why? Conceit in weakest body, strongest works. Conceit, ideas, images, imaginations, fantasies. He says, work strongest where? In weakest bodies. Yeah, sexist idea. Women. What's the term used often, not nearly as much today as it was 50 years ago, to describe a woman who's a little agitated, excited, etc. Hysterical. Okay? You seldom hear that word used to describe men. Speak to her, Hamlet. What's he want Hamlet to do? To restore her to herself. How is it with you, lady? How's it with you, Hamlet? Because he's, staring off into space, talking, that you do bend your eye on vacancy and with the incorporeal air do hold discourse. Forth at your eyes your spirits wildly peep, and as the sleeping soldiers in the alarm, your bedded hair like life and excrements start up and stand on end. What does that mean, his hair start up and stand on end? Have you ever been outside just before or when a huge electrical storm is about to hit? When I was in college down on Lookout Mountain, private little Christian liberal arts school, I was on the soccer team, and it happened, at least once, probably a month. We'd be out there practicing, storm would roll in, and you'd look at all the other players, and suddenly just notice everybody's hairs literally just. Well, now I knew it then, but didn't pay any attention because I was a dumb 22-year-old. It's like, well, that's totally cool. What does that mean to do? Leave, get inside. That's static electricity building up. When it builds up so that your hair stands on end, there's about to be a discharge. Okay? We were playing on a field that was an elevated part, like the top of a mountain had been cut off, and we were at the highest point. Where does lightning strike? The highest point. Okay? And so she says, what are you looking at? Him. I'm looking at him. Come on, look how pale he is. Don't look at me like that. Who are you talking to, Hamlet? Do you see nothing there? Nothing at all. That's all that I see. You didn't hear anything? No, just us. Well, look, there he goes. My father, in his habit as he lived. This is the very coinage of your brain. Hamlet, your brain has created this image. Why? Because he misses his father. She says, this bodiless creation, ecstasy is very cunning in. Ecstasy, the losing of your reason. Hamlet, ecstasy. He says, come here. Take my pulse. Normal. Does temperately keep time, makes this helpful music. It's not madness that I have uttered. Bring me to the test, and I, the matter, will reword. That is, ask me what I said, and I'll re-say it. If you're mad or crazy, you can't repeat verbatim things you've said before. Mother, for love of grace, that is, God. Grace is a gift from God. It's an aspect of God. Lay not that flattering unction to your soul. Unction, healing. Like, some kind of cream you put on to help heal a wound. Lay not that flattering salve to your soul. Why flattering? What does flattering do to you? If you were to come in every day, and I just said you guys are the best students I've ever had in 31 years of teaching, blah, blah, blah. Every day, you'd start to, feel pretty good about yourself. Don't flatter yourself, Mom, that your trespass, that not your trespass, but my madness speaks. No, don't. You're not getting off that easy, he says. Why? If you flatter yourself, if you make yourself believe, oh, Hamlet's crazy, and that's why he said everything he said, it will do what? It will but skin and film the ulcerous place, whilst rank corruption mining all within infects unseen. What is the ulcerous place in Gertrude? It's her heart. That's why David says, create in me a clean heart, O God. It's got to be cleansed. The rot that is there, like a surgeon probing for a wound, has got to open it up and dig it out. Mom, if you think this is because I'm crazy, what's going to happen to her? She's not going to look inward. She's going to just project outwardly. And the rot that's within will do what? Like cancer, it will spread. Confess yourself to heaven. Okay? Now, talked the other day a lot about, I had Calvinism over here and Luther and Catholic stuff. All Christian groups believe in confession, but they believe it in different ways. The Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, there's a very specific rite. It also involves confessing to another person, a priest. Okay? Protestant theology generally, it's about the individual confessing to God. Nobody else involved. Nobody else needs to hear it. Just you and God. But all of them say you've got to do what? You got to take what's in here and hold it out. Whether it's to God or to somebody else to hear it. Confess yourself to heaven. Repent what's past. What does repent means? Be contrite for it. Be sorry for it. Take ownership and ask for forgiveness. Avoid what is to come. Because repentance isn't only about the past. Right? What is she not this very moment, but currently, so to speak, doing with her dead husband's brother? Sleeping with him. Repentance would mean not only taking ownership of that sin of incest in the past and stopping it, okay, from happening in the future. That's why he says, avoid what is to come and do not spread the compost on the weeds to make them ranker. Spreading the compost, the image he uses, is doing it more. You've already sprouted all these weeds. So stop doing it. Forgive me this my virtue, for in the fatness of these pursy times, virtue itself of vice was pardoned day. She says, Hamlet, thou hast cleft my heart in twain. A broken and contrite heart, O God, thou wilt not despise, David says. And when he says, thou wilt not despise, what does he really mean? See, the Semitic mind often works in opposites. So when you say, you won't despise something, what are you really saying? You'll love that. So, you've broken my heart in two. Hamlet, throw away the bad part. In other words, not all of it's bad. Get rid of the bad part. Live the pure with the other half. But go not to my uncle's bed. And so what does he do? He gives her advice on how to change. How does he tell her to change? How does he tell her to become virtuous? It's like an athlete. Training for anything at the beginning. What must you do? If you're a couch potato and you want to start running, do you get up that first day and go out and run 3 miles? No. You get up that first day and you walk. And you get up the next day and you walk. And you're going to be sore from the first day. And you do it a third day and you walk. And maybe each day you walk just a little bit more and you get a little bit less sore. Sports psychologists tell us it takes 2 to 3 weeks to develop that kind of habit. That is, doing it daily. So that after 3 weeks, it's no longer necessarily a conscious decision you have to do. It's become ingrained in you. Hamlet uses the same image for developing a virtue. I want you to develop the virtue, mother, of not sleeping with your husband. So how do you do that? Don't sleep with him tonight. And then don't sleep with him tomorrow night. Now, she might still desire her husband. But if she doesn't sleep with him, that desire gradually will become less. And he's saying, even if you don't have that virtue now, after a while, what? You will become virtuous. You will develop that virtuous habit. And that virtuous habit can be anything. Stopping drinking, stopping smoking, stopping drugs, stopping overeating, the whole 9 yards. Okay? But notice, when you first begin it, you're not virtuous. You're doing what? You're acting. You're putting on virtue like you are clothing. And after a while, that clothing becomes you. Okay? And then he says, talking about Polonius, 173, for this same Lord I do repent. I'm sorry I killed him. Why? He didn't mean to kill Polonius. But heaven hath pleased it so to punish me with this, and this with me. Heaven has been pleased to punish me with Polonius. That is, Polonius was like a whip to me, and punished me with Polonius. That is, and I was the agent of God on Polonius. Notice what Hamlet is saying there. Difficulty, trials, tribulations that we encounter are what? Sent by God. Whew, that makes you stop and think. I will bestow him and will answer well the death I gave him. What does he mean by that? Hamlet knows he's going to answer it with his own death. So good night. I must be cruel only to be kind. Thus bad begins and worse remains behind. One more word. She's like, what should I do? He goes, don't worry. Let the bloat king tempt you to bed. Pinch wanton on your cheek, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Don't sleep with him. And she says, be thou assured, if words be made of light, line 198 or so, and breath of life, I have no life to breathe, what thou hast said to me. Hamlet, you know I've got to go to England, right? She goes, I forgot. There's letters sealed. Okay. They're sealed, meaning Hamlet shouldn't know about them. And my 2 schoolfellows, whom I will trust as I will, adders fanged, rattlesnakes, they bear the mandate. Mandate means order. they must sweep my way. That is, prepare my way, like John the Baptist preparing the way for Jesus. You know, a voice crying aloud in the wilderness. And marshal me to knavery. That is, they will prepare me and they will arrange me in such a way that I will have to act a knave. What's Hamlet telling her without literally telling her? I've got to take care of them too. Hamlet is telling us that he thinks Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are in on that plot. And what's going to happen? Let it work, for 'tis the sport to have the engineer hoist with his own petard. Petard is explosion. Engineer is a miner. He says, often happens, the miner, using explosives, blows himself up. They have agreed to this task, and they're going to blow up as a result. Not literally blow up, but they are going to die. Okay, we're going to pick up there just on Wednesday with that speech again about his two schoolfellows, and then we'll get into Act 4. Act 4 will go by, maybe not real quickly. No, it takes a little longer. Act 5 won't be as long. All right, have a good day. Sorry for keeping you a couple minutes late.